Hi, everyone. Welcome to our August 15th Higher Education Tableau User Group meeting. We are excited to have everyone join us today. Hope you're ready for the first day of school to start pretty soon. All right, so we'll jump right in because we've got a lot going on today. So I would like to, first of all, welcome our ASL interpreters. Our video remote interpreting is being provided by AI Media, who is an established, trusted global leader in live and recorded captioning, transcription, and translation. We're so thankful to have these provided for us today, and just want to give a huge thank you to all of you. Our agenda today, we're going to start with a few announcements, followed by our Meet a Community member with Aimee Shi from Pratt Institute. Next up, we'll have tips and tricks with Eldrid Sequeira from Mercy. We'll have Heather Lewis talk to us about survey data. And then we're going to have a special guest from Tableau talk about their Tableau licensing update. Finally, we'll have our wrap up and chat and our networking breakout rooms at the end. So our announcements for today, I'd like to start off by letting you know ahead of time that we're going to have our annual Slack email purge. So for anyone who's new, we have our Slack channel for higher education, and we go through once a year and look at all the email addresses, and anyone who does not have a .edu or some similar version of a .edu email address is going to get an email from the higher ed HETUG leaders, just asking to make sure if you have a .edu address, you're signed up with it. Otherwise, you just kind of have to get permission, special permission to be a member of our Slack group. We do this to keep any sales pitches out of our group because we want it to be a space where you can all just join and communicate and network without having salespeople, you know, lurking and pushing and hovering over your shoulder. So that is going to be happening in the coming months. And also, we'd like to announce a new Power BI user group. You can find that on LinkedIn. And if we don't have the link for that yet, I will look it up and send it. The gentleman who is starting the Power BI user group is going to be our Meet a Community member next month in September. So be sure to sign up for that, and you'll get to find out more about his initiative. All right, so does anyone want to come off mute and share any announcements of their own, or open positions at your institution that you're searching for? And if you don't want to come off mute, you can also put those in our chat box or post them on Slack in our open positions channel.
I will make an announcement. We mentioned last time that the California Community Colleges user group, Tableau user group, was coming, and now it is here. So our first meeting is scheduled for August 30th. I can put the link in the chat.
It's also on a future slide, just so you know.
Oh, well, great. We've got you covered from all angles then. I will just say it is labeled the California Community Colleges user group, but it's going to focus on California initiatives, but all higher ed folks are welcome because we will be discussing other things other than the California-based initiatives.
Fantastic. Any other announcements from anyone? I see a couple of job postings in the chat box for anyone who's looking.
Well, there's one that just came out earlier today. There's an actual date for TC24 in San Diego. It's going to be April 29th through May 1st. There's a save the date link on that slide. There's the QR code. And I did mean to actually make that link postable in the Slacks or in the chat. So let's come in your way now.
I am so excited. I don't know about anybody else.
I mean, it's San Diego, of course.
right? All right, well, hopefully we will see some of you there. All right, so next I would like to introduce our Meet a Community member for the month. Aimee Shi is a data research analyst at Pratt Institute, where she also earned her master's in science in museum and digital culture. She is passionate about merging institutional wisdom with cutting edge data techniques and user experience principles to create captivating data visualizations. Aimee, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to meet up with you all. I'm really honored to be here and to talk about my work and my passion.
Wonderful. Well, start by telling us a little about yourself and your role in your team.
Sure. First, I'm a data research analyst and serving as an institutional research at Pratt. In this role, I'm responsible for collecting, analyzing, and synthesizing data to create comprehensive reports for both internal stakeholders and external partners. I collaborate closely with my colleague, include associate director and also the senior research analyst to address client, which is also department inquiries, and ensure data-driven insights and support strategic decision. I'm also a user researcher for the museum and the institution to understand the audience needs and audience pain points for the different product goals based on institution's mission and visions. I combine with the UX principle knowledge and the data visualization in the different projects that enhance the usability and user-friendly interactions. My third role is a visual designer. Prior role with my career, I work as an art director at an advertising agency in Shanghai, China, collaborating with international brands. So these three different roles and experience, they're really different, but also really help me to build the futures like data reports and to think about different, ways to build the data set and also the dashboard interaction.
Yeah, that's really different. So what type of data do you work with?
I have the privilege of working with a wide array of data that is pivotal for understanding and improving the higher education's landscape. The data I handle encompass a spectrum of institutional research data, which includes enrollment figures, academic performance metric, graduation rates, demographic informations, and etc.
And how do you use Tableau at work?
I utilize Tableau extensively for data visualization and analysis. Tableau, I also use Tableau Prep to clean up all the data, which is super helpful. And it's really easy by visually to understand all the steps I make it. And also Tableau enable me to transform complex data set into interactive visualization that provide clear insights for the stakeholders. It allowed me to create a dynamic dashboard. The reports can be interactive and help the community to interact with the trend pattern and the key metrics effectively.
You're getting some shout outs in the chat from one of your coworkers.
I saw it. Thank you, Patty.
So what is your favorite Tableau project that you've worked on?
Wow, there are a lot of projects. I've been working with Tableau for like 3 years. And one of my favorite projects will be involved creating a dynamic dashboard that visualizes students' enrollment trends over multiple semesters. I would say it's a first enrollment project, which is also my first project in the Pratt. And I use the Tableau prep and also to build the dashboard allowed the user to interactively explore the enrollment pattern based on the various facts such as demographics. We have different demographics, use the 2 columns like the demographics and also arranged by, so the users interact with it will be more understand or they have with their purpose to find the data they want. And also it was rewarding to witness how this visualization empower decision makers to identify actionable insights and make informed enrollment management strategies.
It's wonderful when your dashboards actually get used to make a difference, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. I think the dashboard in that project, it's also the first time that we create the own format, include the navigation bar, menu drop-down, which is to help the user to interact with and find. It's like a website. It's not the data reports, user data reports.
Definitely. That's your user experience knowledge coming into play.
Yeah, definitely.
So how did you learn to use Tableau?
I have been using Tableau. I think it's initially learned that the basics through the online tutorial and the courses. And also based on my graduated studies, we had a course for the data visualization. And that's the time I start with my Tableau understanding and the knowledge I get from. As I progress, I apply my knowledge to the real world project and sort out more advanced resources to enhance my skill. One of my really like is the community Tableau online, which is I find all the questions I want to know, and which is also if I have any questions, I can find it on that forum. That's really helpful for my learning, and the continuous practice and hands-on experience have been instrumental in mastering Tableau.
Do you have a favorite Tableau feature?
Yeah, of course. Well, I have 2. I not only one. One of my favorite Tableau feature is ability to create a calculation field, which is like, it's so helpful, and this feature empower me to derive new insights by performing calculation on existing data field. And also it allowed me to customize and adapt and analysis to suit specific reporting requirements, answering unique questions. And also another features I really like is to create a swap features on the Tableau dashboard. So that one is when I build the dashboard and you can swap to the different sheets and you can make this dashboard concisely.
I have to agree with both of those. Is there a feature in Tableau you would like to learn more about?
I would say my understanding of Tableau's advanced function stuff, like how I embed some API or connect with Python, which is I was really interesting about, and how I can have more like designing visually appearing and in fact impactful dashboard with really cool interaction, because I saw on the Tableau's portfolio some people made a really cool interaction on that. If you click it and there is different interaction and to build this dashboard and the data visualizations more interesting.
Wonderful. So if you could go back in time, what is one thing you wish you could tell Tableau newbie you?
To newcomers to Tableau, I would emphasize the importance of starting with a solid foundation of the basics, building a strong understanding of data connection, visualization components, and the calculate field will provide a robust platform for creating more sophisticated analysis in the future.
That really does help. Do you ever use Tableau outside of work? And if so, how?
Yeah, of course, Tableau is so helpful and so useful on the different data. I do use Tableau outside of one of my personal work, which is about the financial data. And this financial data, I download the data from the API, and I want to build understanding and interactions, data visualizations from personal fitness tracking, like a booking reading habits or something like and also about the demographics to show the users what I thought about, think about the data.
Great. Is there anything else that you want to share before we start the lightning round?
Yeah, I would say I'm really enthusiastic about the potential of the data analytics and the visualization to drive informed decisions making. I'm really looking forward to contributing my expertise to be further enhance the understanding of complex data sets and their implications in various domains.
Fantastic. All right, then I guess we will start our lightning round. As you know, we'll have several slides with random questions for you and just answer as fast as you can. So the first one, in honor of National Chant the Moon Day, what is your favorite phase of the moon?
The moon, I like the full moon before the full moon, the day before the full moon. It's not exactly the full moon because everyone will be really emotional in that day, but I like the day, like the energy before the full moon.
That is such a unique answer. Next, it is National Sandwich Month. What is your favorite kind of sandwich?
Oh, I'm a Wendy person. Every time I pass to the Wendy's, like even like for the long drive, I must go to Wendy's because their hamburgers is really fresh. I would say it's the level is really premium.
So Wendy's hamburger. Okay. All right. So I don't know if you've seen it, but French's has paired up with Skittles to create mustard flavored Skittles for International Mustard Day, which was August 5th. This is not their first foray into disgusting mustard food combinations, but they've also done donuts and ice cream. But since we've gotten or given mustard flavored Skittles enough airtime, I just want to know, what is your favorite thing to put mustard on?
Mustard. I will put on the chicken, roasted chicken to roast it. I love this mustard will be had like a lot of brand on that. That branded the grains with that mustard is so good with chicken.
Yeah, I like a real grainy mustard, I think, or Dijon.
Yeah, Dijon, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it is also National Jeans Day. Do you have a favorite pair of jeans, and what's the story behind them?
The jeans, that's interesting. I don't have my favorite jeans, but one of the jeans, my partner said it looks like a mummy jeans, maybe it's my favorite one because it's really cool. I think it's a new style jeans in that point. I will say that.
I've not heard of those for the dad jeans, but all right. It is also National Bargain Hunting Week. What is the best bargain you've ever gotten?
Oh, both of it, I never know about that. That is really new to me about the bargain. So I would say the tree, maybe. We need to save the tree to bargain.
Today is Joe Jonas's birthday. Do you have a favorite boy band? Who is it? Is it the Jonas Brothers or another boy band or none at all?
Oh yeah, I born in 80s. So my favorite is Backstreet Boys. So this is my favorite one. It's also the entries like the boys band I heard at when I was really young, and it's really cool. And they are really popular in China.
That is true. I've heard that. So in honor of National Aviation Week, what is a memorable story that you have about airline travel? It could be good or bad.
I will share one of my stories like this trip just like in this summer I visit my parents in China. So I took when I flew back is EVA airline, which is a Taiwan's airline, and when I back I transported twice. One is in Hong Kong, which is in the Cathay Pacific airline, and another one is Emirates. So they are so different airline, I would say, but Emirates really impressive me because they are using the Airbus, which is double like a mansion.
Wow. I've never been on a plane that big. And thank you for you just flew back from China yesterday, right? And you still managed to get here for this meeting today.
Yeah, jet lag is it's tough, but I can do it.
Well, thanks again. All right, so 2 more lightning round questions. The next one is in honor of National Relaxation Day. What is your favorite way to relax?
I would say the yoga meditation is my favorite one. I do yoga every day and also meditations in the morning. So that is the time like to keep my mind really quiet and to help the peaceful in my mind.
I like yoga too. And the last lightning round question today, it is No SpongeBob Day. So do you have a favorite character or favorite episode of SpongeBob SquarePants?
I don't know the episode, which there are so many episodes I like. It's really hilarious, but definitely the character I love is Patrick.
Oh, yeah.
I had a toy is a Patrick. So when I was a kid, like I feel like he's really innocent and really hilarious.
Well, I don't know if I could have picked a favorite episode or character from it, but my sister probably could. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for being our Meet a Community member this month. And if anyone else is interested in being a future community member, just let us know. We have a form that you can fill out, and we'd be really happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving this opportunity to talk about myself and also my hobbies here. And yeah, I will send my LinkedIn on the chat, and really nice to talk with you all and to keep in touch and really open mind for everything. If you are interested about museum and arts, I'm also really
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a slight change in speakers for this next session. So you all might remember Eldrid Sequeira from I don't know how many months ago. He's talked about democratizing dashboards. He's back this month along with Joseph Jacob and Brian de Oliveira to talk about Slate, writing from Slate to Tableau. So Brian, Joseph, Eldred, if you're on, feel free to come off mute and verify if I'm the one who's actually sharing the screen, because I'm not sure that I am.
I see your screen right now.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Roshni. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Jacob. I am joined by Brian de Olivieri, and Eldred may be on. So we're just going to get the ball rolling in today's higher ed Tableau user group presentation on Slate data, incorporating Slate data in our Tableau ecosystem. So we have a slide deck prepared for you, and our real premise about utilizing the Slate data and bringing it over into Tableau, it's the visualization component. Brian will get into a bit more of how we're using Slate data, how we're using the Slate CRM. I'll just start off by commenting about our Tableau environment, where we've switched all of our visualizations to our stakeholders, our viewers. We have a handful of creator licenses that we're also utilizing to bring our Slate data along with our assist data, our CRM data, our DegreeWorks data, any other external data into our data warehouse and joining everything together so we can create better data decisions.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Yeah, and as Joe mentioned, hi everyone, Brian here. Slate's great at many things, but where it kind of lacks a little bit is visualization and reporting. So, we have some basic reports in Slate, but more and more we're starting to build things out in Tableau, we're mostly started Slate from an admissions shop, and we're actually in the process of implementing a student success instance of it. And so a lot of opportunities to sort of get this data in front of a lot of people and make it really digestible has started to come up. So rather than pulling data out of Slate and just sort of dealing with static files, we've been playing more and more with exposing the data directly to Tableau so that you can connect it to our data warehouse data and anything else that's already published.
Okay, Roshni, if you can move on to the next slide.
Give me 1 second. I think I actually have to switch screens. Actually, do you guys have it ready to share? Because
Joe, do you have it?
that
Sure.
might actually be easier. Sorry, my bad.
No problem.
Oh, all
I have
good.
it.
Forgot that Acrobat isn't actually installed on this computer.
Okay, how does that look? Everybody could see
Looks
the
good.
screen?
Good.
Okay. Perfect.
Thanks.
All right, since we've already introduced ourselves, I will move on. Actually, Brian is the executive director in the admissions department, and I work as a director of analytics for both the IR and IT departments.
Yep. So, my team, we do all the data analytics for admissions, as Joe said, and we also are the administrators of our CRM, soon to be 2 CRM systems.
Okay, so we're just going to get right into it. This is the overview of our agenda. We're going to start off with, I'm going to hand it over to Brian. We're going to prepare a little bit of how we're organizing and getting the setup and configuration done into Slate. Then I will get into some more of the technical details of how we're bringing the connection and the data into Tableau from Slate. We're going to show you a little bit of comparison in terms of what it looks like, the data looks like in Slate versus Tableau, and then provide you with some quick resources and give some time for questions.
Thanks, Joe. So, we'll go over 4 fairly easy steps. The nice thing about this is it's not overly difficult, and Slate actually has a lot of information on their knowledge base. So I have a couple of links at the end of this presentation, but if you're in Slate, you can go to the knowledge base, search, and you'll find most of what I'm going to go over here. So I'll try to highlight a couple of things that we've encountered along the way, but it will be fairly straightforward, and it involves creating an account that will be used to connect the data, then building out your query, setting it up as a view, and then just getting that information over to the handy people who will actually be setting up the connection in Tableau and taking it from there. So, so the first step, creating a service account. So you'll want to create an account, and you don't have to worry too much about permissions. This account will actually not be used to log into Slate itself. The only thing you need to do with this account, obviously give it a nice, easy to remember name, and then head over to the roles tab. And if you scroll down to the permissions section, you'll have a direct SQL access exclusive permission. Checking that off will open up the direct SQL access section below, where you'll get their host name, your cluster and database, the username. That will be slightly different from what you set up. It'll actually append some information about your instance on there. The only thing you'll have to do is click reset password. You'll get a nice long default complex password, which you'll want to save. Store that, because once you hit save, it will not display it to you again. Although you can come back and reset it. Just good to grab the first time. You'll also need to whitelist some IP addresses. So if you have a Tableau server, you'll need to have your public IPs. If you're using Tableau Cloud, Tableau has those IPs whitelisted. So if you log into your Tableau Online, you'll see in the URL what site you're on, and you can take that information, head on over to Tableau's website, and translate that over to which IPs you'll need to whitelist. Do this in advance, because Slate can take up to 60 minutes from when you're entering information about a user account for all that information to propagate and update their whitelist. So then, account all set up, you can head over to the query creation screen. My big advice here: always use configurable joins. They're faster. And if you're familiar with Slate, if you've been in Slate, you've probably heard this a million times over, but configurable joins are the future. They're better in pretty much every way. So use configurable joins. Plan your queries and be intentional about your query bases. Of course, you can't change your base once you start a query. So once you set it up, you'll be working out of that. You'll want to follow best practices of query building, and that means being intentional about your joins, being thoughtful about your filters. The more rows you have, the slower it could be. The more joins you have, the slower your query could be. So just be thoughtful of when you're building this out. The other thing to note is you'll want to name your exports to match your column name conventions. So if you have naming conventions in your Tableau environment already, it's easiest to just go through here and name your exports accordingly. Once your query is set up, you can go into the schedule button and set it up as a view. So you can set it up as a materialized view or as a live view. There are pros and cons, but generally it's recommended to stick with materialized views. Materialized views will refresh on a schedule, although the big downside to them is they are essentially a copy of the data that is being queried. So if you are pulling in a lot of information, a lot of rows, if you're building a view of the messages table or ping or any other large table, it will be duplicated into this view. So there are cases where live views would be helpful, but live views run live. So whenever you pull the data, you will have to wait for it to run. It's mitigated a little bit if you're doing extracts in Tableau, but just something to keep in mind. There are some conversations in the community forums and in the Tableau, in the Slate knowledge base about that, and there's some links at the end of this as well. So if you're curious about which one to go with, generally good idea to pick materialize, but good to read through. One thing that I learned fairly quickly is to plan out your view names. Once you create a view, you actually need a help desk ticket to remove it. So if you decide to change the name afterwards, it'll just create a new view and you'll have to reach out to support to get that original view cleared out. Once you decide, you type that in, and you'll have to include table : / for a materialized view or view : / All of this is in a really useful knowledge base article as well, linked at the end. And then once you're done with that, you can choose some notifications. And if you're doing a materialized view, you'll want to set a schedule. Ideally, and they mention it right there, you'll be using the overnight 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. window and set it as a low priority if you have other things running at that time. This is an optional step. Once you create your view, if it's a materialized view, you'll want to go back out to the query editor and just click refresh view, and that'll actually build it for the first time. Otherwise, you'll have to wait for the schedule to run overnight or whenever you choose. And obviously, if you're doing a live view, you don't have to do this. It'll just build on the fly as you hit that view. So once you have your account all set up and your query all set up, you'll just need to get this information over to, in my case, hand it over to Joe. You'll get the Slate server. So if you go back over to that user screen, on the right side, sorry, one more, there we go. On the right side of the direct SQL access, there are some connection instructions. You'll just need to get your cluster, go over to that page, and it'll tell you your connection string, your port, everything you'll need. This page will show you your database name. It'll have your username. You hopefully copied down your password. And then you'll have your views name, which if you're looking at it in something like, SQL Server Management Studio, you'll see it under the build schema. But in Tableau, it will all just be sorted by the view name itself. So you just have to remember where to scroll down to. Give that all over to Joe, and he'll take it from here to make the actual magic happen.
Sure, great. Thank you for that, Brian. So I'm just going to get into a little of how we're preparing for that data to come into Tableau. While what Brian had mentioned requires configurable joins, some level of knowledge of how the inner workings of Slate do work. It was very instrumental and a great collaboration part with our admissions department in gaining that access and understanding. So if you're not a SQL person, if you're not somebody who is knowledgeable of doing the configurable joins, don't be hesitant. The Slate knowledge base has a plethora of information that can be used and it's at your fingertips. For Tableau now, I'm going to show you some useful screenshots of the Tableau environment that you may already been exposed to. A lot of this is based off of admin privileges as well. So once Brian does everything that he does in Slate, he'll hand over the connection details to me. I'm going to just quickly go over how we're going to call the table or the materialized view. And then primarily what we're running these materialized views or table is as a published extract on a scheduled basis. There's also some site settings that I want to just make you aware of. I mean, our environment is a bit different. So I will just add a little disclaimer there. And I can kind of go over that if there's some additional questions. So in Tableau, we understand what different connectors and access we have. Primarily, we're looking right at our Tableau Connect to a new data source screen, and I will just map over and connect to a Microsoft SQL Server. That's where the Slate database resides. As you saw in some of the screenshots before, that is the exact SQL Server hostname that Brian had created and provided to me earlier on. Our database, our username and password, those credentials are all just blackened out, but you just have to be centric in terms of putting in those those accurate credentials. Secondly, once you have the connection established to your Slate server, you are going to path to the database. If it's not selected in this dropdown, you can find the appropriate database. And then for the sake of our presentation today, I search for the two materialized views that have been exposed to us. So you simply grab the table name or the materialized view in this case and drag it into the canvas and add it as a data source. Thereafter, since we're publishing an extract of the table, be cognizant of what Brian had mentioned in terms of the overnight schedule. We are running this as an extract of the materialized view. So it's somewhat redundant, but we're grabbing an extract of that overnight refresh that Slate dumps the data into the database, into the view, into the table. We're grabbing it the next morning. We're creating an extract of that data by selecting connection type extract, and we are going to save it as a hyperfile on our virtual machine. That's just the destination where we have Tableau desktop running. And then we are going to be able to publish that data source, and we are going to include that in our Tableau online environment. We're also publishing this data source through Tableau Bridge client. We are still using the Bridge legacy client. There are also Tableau online schedules that can be set up and coordinated as well. When you do bring this table and view over, there, as many of you may have seen, an update now button that appears here. It will provide the number of rows of data that's available in the table. This should coincide with what is in Slate's query builder as well. So you'll have some exposure to the amount of rows that's in Slate, as well as the direct connection from Tableau to Slate, which is on this user interface. Once you've published the data source, and then we've added some resources in terms of step-by-step on how to get into that. We're not going to go into that just in today's presentation. You'll want to be able to go onto your Tableau online instance and schedule an extract of the data. So as I've mentioned, we do use this schedule with Bridge Legacy, and it's as simple as going into the actual master table here and clicking on Schedule Bridge Legacy and establishing which VM, which computer is hosting the Tableau Bridge client as a service, and then being able to set up a daily, weekly, a periodic schedule refresh. So I know that Brian's schedule refresh goes nightly from 12 to 4. So once that is complete, I've set this daily schedule or business daily schedule at 5 a.m. Finally, some settings on Tableau Online and Bridge Client. And this is, this may be particular to your use case. In ours, we did have to whitelist that host name on our Bridge Client settings because we are querying that database back. And we do want to allow that whitelisting, that trust, and that handshake between our Tableau VM and the Slate SQL Server. So there's more information in the resources that can be, found in terms of the site settings. But this was very critical for us to be able to get the solution up and running. So once that's implemented in, it does not change unless you switch to another instance of Slate. Finally, our Tableau Bridge client. As I mentioned before, we are using the legacy Bridge client still. I don't know how many of our Tableau users are using online versus Bridge client, but we found it much easier to monitor some of our schedule refresh extract and pay very close attention to how the refreshes are going on a daily basis. So just a quick preview of this, from the taskbar on the VM, we're opening up the client. Initially, you do have to set up the username and password after that extract is published. So then you'll save that. And this just gives another overview of when the update last ran and when it's expected to run next. You have the server here. Once again, And we do get automated emails if there are any interruptions in the extracts. And then I'm just going to hand it back over to Brian. He's going to go over some of the results that we're able to capture from our data.
Thanks, Joe. So yeah, I mean, I mentioned before, but Slate's not particularly the easiest tool to use for visualization. You can create, the nice thing about it is real-time reporting on it, but if anyone has been in the report tool in Slate, you'll probably recognize something like what I have here. It can get clunky. The visualizations are pretty limited. So what we end up using a lot is just data tables. You have splits and you have columns, and you have to do a lot of kind of weird little funky things, like you want to show something as a percentage of a whole. Well, you're going to be creating a bunch of columns and then having to hide them with a little hacky trick, and then going in and building a formula, and it's fine. It works in some cases, but if you've had it, once you've done the same kind of thing in Tableau, you'll find yourself in there wishing you're just doing it in Tableau because it's just much better. So, I have a couple of screenshots here, something that we built out where we just wanted to very simply track the effect of attending a particular event on our enrollment. Was pretty annoying to build out, and something as the filters we turned out were pretty much the same as we had in that query that we built out for the Tableau extract. So it was just as simple as connecting to the published data source, dragging a couple of pills over, and quick little calculation, and much better. Some of the stuff that we can't really show here, we haven't gotten too much into it, but where we're planning to go in the future with this actually involves then taking some of this and embedding it right back into Slate. So you can have some of these embedded into Slate reports or portals to then display on the Slate side, and you can get really interesting results where you can have people in Slate looking at embedded Tableau reports. And it's just a win-win for everyone. And Joe, I don't know if, one other thing. So I included a couple quick links here. I mentioned before, Slate knowledge base is fantastic. They have a lot of information. If you're concerned, you're hesitant, or you're working with a different team that's actually doing the Slate part of things, they're probably aware of a lot of this, but feel free to grab these and send them over. There's also a really good presentation from a few years back that was presented at Slate Summit about exactly this. And it was actually a two-parter. The second half presented, I think, by Colby Bennett, University of Georgia, I think now with HCRC, it goes into a lot of some of the things that he had done over there. And it's a great presentation. I learned a lot through it. So definitely go check that out.
Great, thanks, Tab. Thanks, Brian. I also included some knowledge base articles from Tableau, which has a very extensive and great knowledge base dictionary. So please feel free to check them out. It highlights an overview of some of the steps that I went through. And if there's any additional, need to have a session with us, if you're curious about, anything that we discussed, we'd be more than happy to, set up some time for that. Reach out to us. This is our email addresses, and you can also find us on LinkedIn. We thank you and appreciate your time today.
Yeah, there's one question I guess Ben has here about talking about once you've embedded Tableau reports. I don't think I can share right now, but if you go into a Tableau, let me see if I can just pull it up real quick. If you grab the embed code out of Tableau, you can just take that and paste it right into a what's it called, a report part. So I don't have the links here. Slate lets you create reports, and there's a lot of this in the knowledge base. But when you create a report, you can set it up so that it displays on the home page. One of the things you can do is just add a static content. And in the static content, you have access to the HTML. So you can go right in to that HTML and paste the embed code. And as long as your dimensions are set right, then it should just embed within an iframe, I believe, on that report. And again, if you have the report configured to display on the homepage, then you end up with a homepage report that actually just displays Tableau. Similar to Portal, the Portal process is similar. You just add a static content and then edit the HTML, drop the embed code right in there, and it should just load.
All right, thanks, guys. I think there are just a couple questions about the embedding, so maybe you guys could come back and do like a really quick tip and trick in a future HETUG to just sort of show the embedding aspect, and maybe we can talk about other ways of embedding Tableau dashboards in other places as well. So if anyone out there in the audience has some ideas about how they've embedded Tableau dashboards, we want to hear from you about that as well. So just go to tinyurl.com/present@HETUG. The link will be shared in just a second as soon as I learn how to both talk and move slides and copy and paste all at the same time. I can't do it. So thank you, Joe and Brian, for bringing this content to us. We are going to move on to our next presentation. So Heather Lewis is from Augusta University. She's been here a few months ago, maybe even last month. Time just, it's the summer, time just all blurs together. And I meet a community member session. And she's here today to actually sort of dive deep into survey data in Tableau. But before we get there, I just want to do a quick plug. There was a job posting at Augusta in the Tableau, Tableau Slack. So go check that out. And again, I can't copy and paste and talk and move slides at the same time. So I will get that link into the chat in just a second as well. But Heather has a bachelor's in psychology from Georgia College and State University, an MS in industrial organizational psychology from the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. She's been at Augusta for over a decade, for almost 11 years, as an assessment coordinator, research analyst, a survey coordinator, and is now the director of institutional analytics. Look at that career progression. Nice job. But yeah, she's here to talk about data. So Heather, if you want to go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me back, guys. I really appreciate it.
Always welcome.
I'm going to navigate to my slide deck and then get into presentation mode. Okay. All right. So today I'm here to talk about survey data in Tableau and how to get your data kind of just right and what resources are out there to help you with this, because survey data has to be set up a certain way with Tableau and whatnot. And this is actually how I learned Tableau, was using survey data, not student admissions and enrollment and stuff like that. It was really just the survey data. So I'm going to go on into it. And so today we're just going to talk about, Tableau can be used to gain insight from your survey data, whether it's a homegrown instrument or, an external tool. And then go over to Tableau Prep Builder. It allows you to clean your data and reshape your data very easily. And then filters. Filters are always great. It kind of brings the whole institution together, and the filters make it relevant, the data relevant to them, especially when it comes to looking at academic program and the results for the students in those programs. And then just gain ideas on how to present the survey data in Tableau. There's always reoccurring themes with our audience, particularly our leadership, as to how they want to view survey data. So what do I do with the survey data? So we had Qualtrics at the time, and I'm really referring back to 2014 when I was asked to put survey results into Tableau. And so we had Qualtrics to do our homegrown instruments, like our graduation exit survey. And then we had Nessie. We had, raw results from Nessie and Bessie and one-year FESI. And then we also had Tableau. And so my boss, Holly Goodson Rubio, asked me, can we get the survey data into Tableau? Is that a thing? Can you figure that out? And, as she asked me that, I'm like, well, how do I do that? It's just, where do I even start and stuff? So this was me basically confused in 2014 and 15. I love this little meme. It's so great. It's like constantly me all the time, like at least once a day. So back in 2014, though, when she asked me to bring the survey data into Tableau to see what could be done, our scenario at the time with the NESIA reports from Indiana University, we had a lot of static reports. We had a ton of raw results, and then we had a ton, even more, just static aggregated, but actionable reports. They're really great with the reports. They're very, comprehensive and, easy to understand the way they lay everything out for you and whatnot. But I mean, it's still a ton. And to find the time to comb through all of that, to find the insight that is relevant to certain leadership is quite, time consuming. And so this is just to illustrate, this one particular data collection, in 2020, we had all of these PDFs, and that's not even to mention the Excels that we got from them, and then multiply that by 5, because we did this every year from 2016 to 2020. So it's a mountain of data to go through. So that was one of our scenarios. Another scenario was our graduation exit survey data collection that we did through Qualtrics. And, with this, we had one report that showed the institutional results of, so all the student responses across the institution. And then we had to break it down by college and by school. And so we had to break that down. And then we had some, miscellaneous reports to come out of that. Some reports were just for philanthropy or gen ed. And we had to do that after every fall and every spring and every summer. So it was a lot. It was a lot of data collection and not really a lot of time for like true analysis. But that was our scenario at the time. The real game changer, though, was, and I bring this guy up all the time. I'm sorry if I'm annoying y'all by now, bringing this resource up all the time. It is Steve Wexler, Data Revelations. And, once, Holly asked me, what can we do with the survey data in Tableau? I just started Googling, is there anything out there? And then I found his blog, and it is awesome. And so I'm going to hit this play button. And it goes over the exact steps of how to get your survey data just right, and how, before you bring it into Tableau. And so that's just what like your labels will look like. You'll also bring in your values in order to get averages, and then your metadata as well. And these are question IDs and whatnot. So you can actually get the question in there with your Tableau. And then, so what does it all look like together? And this is a snippet of that. And so this was big for us when I learned, like, okay, it makes sense. Okay, now I got to do this before I do that. But I need to bring in the questions, but how does that look so it can make sense to, lay audience? So this was a big game changer for me in particular. And so you have to get your data just right. Okay, I think this is the same slide. I don't know why it does this sometimes. Okay. Okay, and then how do you get your data just right? And there's a couple ways to do it. One of them is Tableau Prep, and really great instructions on here. There's screenshots and how to connect your data. It's going to be an Excel file, most likely, and it's going to be wide, out of Qualtrics, where each column is the response from a question, each row is the participant, but it wants it tall. And so Tableau Prep will help you take your wide data to tall data very, very easily, and clean up your data and recode your data and whatnot. So it's really, really great. It's really awesome. And then let's see. So the basic structure here is when I will do all this tall survey data in Tableau Prep, and then I will bring in even more stuff into desktop. And so I will bring in the whole population file, and then I'll do a join like this, a left join, because I want to include everybody in the population file to show response rates. That's always a big thing with our leadership is, well, who responded to the survey? And what is the representation of that audience, compared to those who were invited to take the survey? And so we join by student ID and term. And then we also have the tall survey data that we, flip in Tableau Prep. And so it's reshape the data from prep. We get the labels in there, we get the values in there. You want both. You will end up wanting both. And then we also do a left join, and this is the question helper file, and we'll join it based on question ID. And these are all the questions from the survey. And having this question helper file is a big game changer. It will help you navigate and therefore viz out your views pretty fast if you have this in there, because all your data will be organized in a way that you can just work faster. And so that is the basic structure. And so I try to like replicate, the joins and whatnot that we see in prep and desktop. But that is the basic underlying structure of our Tableau workbooks regarding survey data. And then, let's see. And then we have Nessie. This is one of our workbooks that we have. I'm going to hit the play button. And so for 5 years, we took, all those Nessie, that data, and we kind of used our aggregated reports to kind of help us understand, okay, well, how should it be structured? How should we lay it out? How should we tell the story? And so those reports really help kind of drive, what our Tableau looked like. So we had response rates at first, and then we have our group comparisons so that you could see if we did higher or lower on certain questions across the years. And so if you go here, and then you can see exactly in your tooltip, how you did, what was the average score. If you want to see the frequencies of this particular question, you will go here, and then you can see what that looks like, what that distribution looks like right there. So yeah, that's good. And then, we had different colors to, reflect the response rate, the response options. And then we also have responses by demographics. And with this, what we did was also have, these are who responded in the group, but this is who was invited in the group. So you can get a sense of that over underrepresentation and stuff like that. And so that's always a big question from our leadership. And then responses by attributes, who responded and but who was invited, was this group over or underrepresented and by how much? So we could just get a comprehensive understanding of who, what our results are like and stuff. So if they're, generalizable or not and stuff like that. So yeah, those are the Nessie trends. And then graduation exit survey. This is our homegrown instrument. And this is also another workbook that we have. And this is, we always start off with response rates. And right here, we do have response rates. And then we have the corresponding response counts. And then the response rates by demographics. If you hover on the tooltip, it'll show you that over and under representation as well. And we have then response rates by student level and college and academic program. And this is isolated by a term. So it's not necessarily a trend kind of view, but you can get into academic program here. And so more and more of our academic programs have been kind of using this tool for their program accreditations to get to some of these kind of outcomes upon graduation kind of information. So yes, the academic program has been a big, very relevant and important filter here across the institution. And then I should turn off my Teams, I'm sorry. And then this is one of the last views in the graduation exit survey. And let's see. So I think it paused. Did it pause? And so and that shows the trend of whether or not they're likely to recommend AU or not. And then we did a sentiment analysis on the comments to see what that trend looks like. Are we trending up on positive comments or not? And if you hover over those bars, you can see the actual comment from the student, but they're de-identified. And here as well, you can filter by program, which is really great and really valuable, gives good insight as to what's going on for those students. And then another one that we have, and we won't go through all the tabs, is the faculty workload survey. We did this a few years ago. It was right during like when quarantine happened, when I was visiting this out. But our vice provost for faculty affairs was really interested in not just response rates, but over and under representation. So we didn't want it necessarily in the tooltip. And we really wanted it, kind of like in conjunction with, the groups and stuff like that. So seeing it like this by, response rates by tenure college, tenure status, and then race ethnicity, kind of see what that looks like. And then, job family, years of service. She really wanted to be able to communicate this out to her committees on workload around this information, and so that they would have understanding who responded to the survey. But that's it. That's all I had. I think I talked pretty fast. Sorry about that. But if you have any questions or, how did you do that? Am I able to do that? I'm happy to, answer anybody's questions and that sort of thing.
So
but thank you so much.
Thanks for presenting, Heather. We had a couple of questions sort of throughout. One of them was actually mine. And since I have the mic, I'm going to ask it. So a lot of our questions actually had to do with the data structure, because that's that's where people are like, how do I turn the survey data into something real?
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you did the cleaning in that middle chunk in prep, but then you did the actual joining in desktop. Is there a reason that you chose to join in desktop versus doing all of the cleaning and the joining in Tableau prep?
That's a really great question. I think if I could do it now, knowing what I know now, I think I could just do it all in prep and try it that way. But before, when I wanted to just, as kind of like a more novice user, I'm just going to do one step at a time and really follow these instructions.
Yep. Yeah, totally get that.
Yeah. But now if I could just use prep, which is really awesome and really great and can do all the things, then I'm probably going to just default to prep as much as possible. But yeah, you could do it in either one or in both or just prep.
Right. We actually had someone mention that with custom SQL, they're doing some of the pivoting there, so that way they don't have to use prep. And someone also just used desktop itself to do the pivot. I'm not sure if it was Qualtrics, because I know that Qualtrics, not add-in, Web Data Connector does some pivoting for you, and there's some other like sort of, I'm gonna say, really high level cleanup that desktop can do. I know that's not the right phrase. So I am curious as to how they did that. But yeah, people do have a few more questions. If you want to take a look in the chat and either answer them there, a lot of them kind of get into the details. And there's also a request to if you can share the link to some of the published dashboards if you have them, because then if some of them are available and not just on your Tableau public, it would be great if you could share the link. So awesome.
For sure.
Great, thank you. And just so I'm just kind of scrolling through the chat, that just like all of them came out here. So Crystal actually used Excel, not the Qualtrics data API, to do some of the data file that was able to be pivoted. And I think, yep, and there's a couple more questions. So thank you again, Heather, for coming and showing us how you went all the way from base data file to this these final dashboards. All right, so up next, we've got a couple of guests from Tableau. As you may have seen in the Slack, you may have gotten emails. There are some changes happening soon in this renewal cycle, basically, about how Tableau licensing is being done. Some of the permanent licenses, all, I'm not actually sure, they're here to answer these questions, are being discontinued in favor of subscription licenses. So Coleman Wagner and Adam Ingram Iser are here on the line to share what they can about these licensing changes and how Tableau is sort of helping the education community kind of deal with them. So Coleman, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, no problem. And I will see if I'm allowed to share my screen really quick.
Should be able to. And while Coleman is sharing, I'm also going to add that if you guys have seen the education use cases Tableau viz that's out there that has just a list of and actually links to a bunch of public facing Tableau dashboards that have been created around the country. I think also Canada. I can't actually remember anymore. Coleman is the one behind that. So it's a nice viz. It's a really great place for people to sort of get some inspiration about how to handle everything from IR use cases to facilities to I can't remember what other random things are on there, but I've definitely spent some time there. So thanks.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Coleman Wagoner. I'm a principal solutions engineer at Tableau, really supporting analytics adoption in our accounts in higher education. I primarily focus on the more technical aspects of our product. And my leadership asked me to join today to just discuss some of the technical implications with the upcoming conversions from perpetual licenses to subscription licensing. I realize there are a lot of institutions represented on this call today. So I will primarily be talking at a very high level. If you do have questions, feel free to ask, but I'm sure there'll be some that I will direct towards a conversation with your Tableau account executive. Adam Ingram-Eisner is also on the call. He leads our EDU and nonprofit business at Tableau, and I wanted to turn to Adam and see if he had anything he wanted to add from the sales perspective before I go ahead and dive into the presentation on the technical considerations.
Yeah,
Adam,
Coleman and Roshni, thank you. Can you all hear me? Can you all hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. A little faint. Talk a little louder.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try to. I'm in Chicago right now, downtown, so I apologize for the background noise. So first and foremost, thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation with everybody. I know the perpetual to subscription changes that were announced a couple months ago have caused a lot of questions. What I would say is to reach out to your account executive or your renewals person to begin having those conversations. We at a very high level today can kind of walk through that. And so that you'll have some understandings and kind of, have a better feel for what's going on. But again, reach out to your team. It's my goal for the education community to make sure that we migrate over to the subscription model with as little cost, as possible to the higher education institutions moving forward. I know there's concern there. So I'm going to turn it back over to Coleman. But if there are questions, please feel free to reach out to our team.
All right. Sounds good. And that's the first thing I wanted to say first is thank you, right? Thank you for being our great customers and really driving the data and analytics initiatives at your institutions. Certainly thank you to our longtime customers, certainly those that have perpetual licenses. I've been at Tableau now for 12 years, and many of you have been on this journey for the same amount of time and even longer. So we really appreciate your business. And we understand that change isn't always easy. And we thank you for your patience as we continue to evolve on our journey as part of Salesforce, which is driving part of the subscription aspects as well. I really wanted to get into more of the technical side of the changes you would see by switching from perpetual licenses to subscription. The first one is a large percentage of my customers have perpetual core based licensing models. So converting to a subscription core based model is probably the most likely path. In this scenario of switching from a perpetual core to a subscription core, really the primary change is the license key that you would activate and swap into your environment. The primary difference is in what happens if you choose not to renew Tableau server licenses. So in a perpetual model, the software continues to operate on its existing version, but if you choose not to renew the license, it continues to operate, but you lose access to feature upgrades, security patches, and technical support. So all the things that you're currently getting included with your maintenance, switching to subscription is how you continue with those kind of key aspects of feature upgrades, security patches, technical support. In a subscription model, it operates very similar to probably any subscription service that you have, in that you lose access at the end of a subscription term if you choose not to renew the subscription. So that's the primary difference between perpetual and the subscription model. But if you have a core-based model, you can continue to have a core-based model. It just would be a subscription model going forward. But there's also other ways that you can kind of reevaluate how you are licensing Tableau users. I would say that most of our core-based model customers really value that model because it is this theoretical kind of enterprise unlimited explorer viewer consumption model, as well as it has the guest license, which I think a lot of our institutions, especially in institutional research, those that have core-based models might use that guest license for the unauthenticated access to embedded dashboards. So I think a lot of it, like institutional research, might have an interactive fact book series of dashboards on Tableau. In a lot of cases with a core-based model, the data and the dashboards reside on their server instead of Tableau public, and it's a way to have that unauthenticated access. So certainly there's a lot of value in the core-based model for those that use the guest license or have a very large number of users actively consuming dashboards. But overall, I would say that most people consuming Tableau dashboards are what we would consider viewer licenses, people that simply need to log in and interact with the dashboards that are built for them, right, by an analyst within their department. And those users consuming the dashboard don't necessarily need to web author or download the underlying data. They're just simply consumers. And so in a role-based scenario, sometimes our customers can just evaluate their active usage and adoption and estimate future growth of each of the different role-based license types, which is creators, explorers, explorer being the same as the perpetual interactor. For those of you that might have older versions of Tableau with perpetual interactors, that's the equivalent role, is called an explorer. And then generally, if your institution might only have maybe hundreds of active users, it might be a very cost-effective model to move towards a role-based model with viewers. And just be aware that it is an option. Generally, from a technical perspective, I would say it's much easier to estimate the number of users than it is from the technical perspective to estimate the hardware capacity that's the best fit to meet the requirements to support all of the possible use cases with data and analytics with high performance, scalability, and redundancy. So role-based licensing, primarily the benefit there is not being restricted on hardware. So you can have deployment agility. So that might mean for some customers, maybe you have lots of users, you want to architect more of a highly available, redundant cluster of Tableau server. Or in a lot of some of my mature Tableau customers, they might have a dedicated node for what's called the backgrounder, basically the process that runs and schedules the extract refreshes. Sometimes it makes sense from a hardware perspective to isolate that workload on a separate node. And so having role-based licensing is one way to have a little more flexibility and agility in how you choose to deploy Tableau server. And as you've probably seen over time, as we continue to add new features, new processes, new capabilities to Tableau, our hardware recommendations have generally increased, right? Increased RAM, increased CPU, and that's especially true with our hyper extracts, which if you've used Tableau extracts, you've imported data into Tableau, they perform significantly better the more hardware that you have available. So once again, just wanted to highlight that role-based licensing conversions is something that you might consider depending on your use case scenario. And I'd highly recommend talking to your Tableau account executive if that's something of interest. The other option when considering to convert to role-based subscriptions is Tableau Cloud, which is our software as a service offering. And so Tableau Cloud is a really robust multi-tenant architecture that kind of checks all the IT boxes around disaster recovery, high availability, redundancy, scalability in the cloud, all of those kind of key software as a service capabilities, as well as it always gets the latest innovation and patches. And if any of you attended any of the sessions at Tableau conference, either in person or virtual, you probably saw a lot around the innovation in the AI space, like Tableau Pulse and Tableau GPT. Those are all things that are likely come into Tableau Cloud first. If you're considering Tableau Cloud, once again, I'd reach out to your Tableau account executive, getting our solutions engineering team involved, and kind of helping to navigate and technically validate a potential migration strategy, as there are functional differences in important areas like data connectivity, especially if a lot of your data might be behind the firewall, user identities, as well as in some cases, content governance as well. And then the last type of perpetual conversion is the perpetual desktop conversion to Tableau creators. So Tableau creators have access to Tableau desktop as well as Tableau Prep Builder, which, as was mentioned in the previous session, it's a platform that's really great for cleaning, preparing data for analysis, right? I think that, within IT, certainly they have lots of tools that do ETL and those types of kind of robust capabilities, but Tableau really sought out to make it easier for the business user analyst to clean, prepare data for analysis in a more visual and direct approach. And so the Tableau creator license has that access to Tableau Prep Builder. The creator license also contains a creator site role license on Tableau Server or Tableau Cloud. So if you're currently on a perpetual desktop and you're going to convert to a creator, one thing that they will ask you is, do you want a Tableau Server creator role or a Tableau Cloud creator role? So when converting and specifying, really that's dependent on how your institution currently runs their environment, whether it's a Tableau Server, might be centrally hosted by IT, or whether your institution uses Tableau Cloud. Generally, I would recommend converting the creator to whichever version that IT kind of supports and maintains on your institution environment. The last bit on licensing around creators is we're moving towards what's called login-based license management. It's commonly referred to as LBLM. And so I have one quick slide on that as well. And so login-based license management is the default activation method for Tableau Cloud. So rather than as a creator on Tableau desktop activating a 20 character key, which generally those keys always start with a TC, is the first two characters TC, and then 18 additional characters, and you activate the product using a 20 character key. A user activates their desktop and Prep Builder software by logging in with their credentials to Tableau Cloud, which then checks that they have the assigned valid creator site role on Tableau Cloud, which then communicates with our licensing service and then grants the activation locally to that individual's desktop and Prep Builder software. So just being aware that for those that are using Tableau Cloud, that's going to be the primary mechanism at which people are activating creator licenses, or new creator licenses are generally using that login-based license mechanism. So for institutions that use Tableau Server, and I know that a large percentage of my Tableau Server customers, they don't necessarily activate the individual departmental users as creator site roles on Tableau Server, right? The majority of analysts, they're activating that 20 character key. Once again, the key in your licensing portal that starts with TC on desktop and Prep. So as you convert to creators, just make sure that you work with either your renewals person or your Tableau AE to make sure that you're still getting the TC creator keys, because that's going to be our standard moving forward, is more towards login-based license management, which is most likely not the standard within IT to activate individuals Tableau Server creators, especially in the case where a lot of times each department likely purchases their own creators in a more decentralized approach with maybe a separate customer or licensing portal than what IT centrally manages for the server. So just be aware of that. If you're converting individuals from perpetual desktops to creators, just make it clear that you would like to still receive TC creator keys, just to make sure that we don't have to work with IT to get Tableau Server creator keys activated on the environment and then assigned for individual users. And then so lastly, so kind of from the Tableau Server perspective, if they were to have TS creator keys, all they do is they activate it on Tableau Server as a creator license, and then users in their Tableau Server, instead of what likely is things like Explore can publish or Interactor can publish if you have perpetual licenses, basically you would just assign someone a creator site role, and then in login-based license management, the Tableau desktop users activate with their Tableau Server credentials, which checks that there's a valid creator site role for that user, and then communicates to our licensing service. And then that licensing service basically issues the activation on that individual user's active Tableau desktop and Tableau Prep. So those are kind of the key changes, right? I think for a lot of my customers, it's going to be, on a core-based license, it's going to be just moving from a perpetual core to a subscription core license, or potentially from perpetual interactors to maybe role-based licensing of, quantifying explorers and viewers. And then the last thing to consider, once again, is that Tableau Creator. Generally, for most of my customers, just make sure to ask to try to still get those TC Creator keys. I've only had a few scenarios where they've only received Tableau Server Creator keys, and that's usually based off of it seeing it as a new license, new deployment, rather than being in kind of the flow or chain of accounts from the highest level of the university than the department, because oftentimes those departments have individual licensing portals. So that's a thing to probably consider from the technical side. And with that, I know I'm 1 minute over. I'll take a quick look at the chat to see if there's any questions. But once again, if you do have questions, I would highly recommend reaching out to your Tableau account executive as well.
So one of the Tableau account executives, Chris Regan, I'm not sure how to pronounce the name, has been answering some of these questions. We are running out of time. We have run out of time. So I hope my screen is being shared. We are going to close out today's meeting and then go into breakout rooms. There will be space for, if you have Tableau licensing questions, to be able to ask those in a breakout room. But for now, we want to just kind of close out today's meeting. So let us know what you thought of today's meeting. The links are in the chat, and they'll also be posted on Slack. Don't forget to register for next month's meeting, September 19th. We'll be meeting Pete Benbow from Davidson, who, as we mentioned earlier, is starting up a higher ed Power BI user group. Regina Gonzalez from Texas A&M Corpus Christi is going to be sharing some tips and tricks. And then Kevin Wee, a Tableau Public Ambassador and Purdue PhD, is going to be presenting on Figma and Tableau. If you want to present at a future HETUG, want to be interviewed in our Meet a Community Member session or segment, or just have things that you want to see, feel free to fill out the form at tinyurl.com/present@HETUG. And one last reminder, the new California Community Colleges TUG, the CCC TUG, is starting off. They're having their kickoff meeting August 30th, so 2 weeks in a day at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Lisa, Sam, and Kimberly hope to see you at the kickoff meeting. And the link is also in the chat there. And speaking of the CCC TUG, one of the breakout rooms we're going to have is also about regional TUGs and internal TUGs. So if you are leading an internal TUG or a regional TUG, or want to talk about the options, you can feel free to join that room. But for now, I want to thank everyone who has presented today, everyone who asked questions, everyone who attended. We really appreciate you spending your time with us here at the August HETUG.